diabetes world. It's August 24th, and we're out for our walk. It's supposedly going to be a little bit cooler than yesterday, but we will see. Our Wednesday will be. It's still Tuesday here. I do tape a day before. So, what do I want to talk about today? And not because she's moving down. Just a second. But I want to talk about parents. And, parents at the different stages of your life. So, we'll go off and discuss things. Now, did what I have to say, does that contribute to where I am now and such? But we will discuss parents. Okay, if you're diagnosed like I was, diagnosed at 13, my mother was sort of very career oriented at that point. And it was sort of like, well, you learned what to do. She cooked the meals and everything. But you learned what to do, so you can take care of it. So that worked better a bit. But I was pretty well left alone to do it. And I pretty well took my shots. And I can remember, there was an ad in the back then the Diabetic Association, now Diabetes Canada. What should I was going and getting, I think it was frozen yogurt. It was 70s. Frozen yogurts were all over the place. And I went and got a large. And I counted that as my fruit. Lo and behold, did I get more fruit than I was supposed to. Had. So, what to do? I didn't do anything. And I started to learn what I could get away with, Sort of like, well, what they told you in diabetic classes through the hospital, what was sort of real, what wasn't. I was sort of, if my parents knew, they'd probably say, oh, you were playing around with your insulin. But late, as I got older, it became accustomed that you would correct your dose. Well, so often, kids sometimes know what they're doing. And at that time, I wanted to be, what did I want to be? I wanted to be sort of independent. I wanted to show the world I could do it. Now, my mom kind of left it to me. And then she went off to Fiji with my stepdad, and I was left with my sister. And, I pretty well got the amount of insulin that I needed. And, I took care of things. I was actually doing okay. Then I had a severe low. And that was the first time I remember waking up in an emergency room. She wasn't allowed in the room. So here it was, a 14-year-old left in the room. So more intensively, she became my parent. I was a growing boy. And when I started to get hungry. So I would be walking to school or walking down to the bus stop, and in my lunch was a banana, and I was so hungry that I took the banana, and she came back with driving up in the boyfriend, and what are you eating? You don't. Well, I'm sorry. And that was the first time I sort of learned that people have a different expectation. Now, I would say to the doctor or dietitian or whatever, well, I'm finding myself a bit hungry. But we didn't count carbs back then. So, she made sure I had all my supplies and stuff. But, again, I think I really wanted someone that I wanted, eyes on every time. But she wasn't interested. What my urine test showed, I don't think I went to the doctor with her. But somehow, I think I started having problems at school. And I would be having all these reactions, and I cut back on my insulin, and I was still having them. So lo and behold, I started I can remember going to the nurse, and I would have a chocolate bar, and I would have a drink, and people used to say, oh well, yes, you're just going to get the free chocolate bar or whatever. I end up having to replace it sometimes, but again, no one really checked me. I don't know, about a year and a half after getting diabetes, I was put back in. And I guess everyone was thinking, oh well, you're old enough, you should be able to do things. Well, I guess it kind of happened when I moved to Edmonton with my dad. And, we were living with another family, and I would go to school, come home, and the doctor set up this diabetic training seminar that we really should go to. Yeah, right. And so I went, and you know what? What? Or sorry, I didn't go. The lady who did the cooking went. And say, oh, well, you're doing everything wrong. And you know what? Especially a teenage diabetic doesn't want to hear, just like a teenager doesn't want to hear all the time, oh, you're doing something wrong. You should know. You should be able to know, and you should be able to eat, and you should be following your plan to the letter. And I really got tired of always being pulled out, and oh well, yeah, you're doing that, you're doing that. Oh, so, but what I'm trying to say, during this time, I have picked up some bad habits. So when my dad came back, oh well, oh, you're not managing your allowance well, and you should really be having a checking account. And well, I had a checking account, and I showed I could really manage the money. Don't know what happened, but okay. So I go home, and try to live by the rules. And at school, I was sent away to boarding school. Didn't really have any control. Again, if I was going to lunch or had too much at lunch, I would give another shot. And I didn't really have a low blood sugar. I had one low blood sugar while I was there. And, it was, I think, a Sunday morning. And everyone was getting up and doing everything. And so it makes me wonder, if I'm busy, then I shouldn't have an issue. I have less issues. Well, I was really beginning to wonder that, because I finished work and then it progressively got worse. So, I got involved in something else, and I kept having them. So it wasn't so much in my mind being busy. It was just, I think it's my body. Is it possible to become more brittle or liable or liberal or whatever it is now? Brittle was such a more easy. No, we've got to change it so it's this now. They totally forget about some of the people understanding things and, just trying to make it easier. Now, I know brittle sounds like it can break, but I don't like libel or libel or whatever the word is. It's the medical profession again telling us what it's called. they have these world conferences, and I'm for sure it's got to be done at one of those. But, when do the diabetics, have a chance to choose a name for something? And I wonder how many really diabetics go to these conferences or are able to go to these conferences. The World Diabetic Organization or whoever runs these meetings, maybe they should invite a large contingent of diabetics from that host country or city or whatever. And get them able to go. Wouldn't that be interesting? Oh, that. Come to think about it, there is an expo here for type 1 diabetics. And I keep forgetting about it, and I'm going to have to crack my neck. Get invited to that, or get invited, buy a ticket or whatever. Because that will definitely be interesting. But anyway, back to my brittleness. And parenting. Again, I was pretty well let go and free to go on my merry way. And my mom thought, oh, well, he's done well. He's gone to school and everything. And I got a job, and I pretty well, A, I wanted some money, but B, I got a job, and my parents were supportive. But again, there was no one really checking up on me. So thinking back to that era of my life, I kind of wanted someone there. Someone to reinforce the positive, which I never really got. And to be perfectly honest, it was my dad and my mom. She knew she knew the very basics. My dad didn't really know much about it at all. And I can remember I was living with him or staying with him down in Texas. And I was just walking all over the place. Just kind of really out of it, and I had a severe low blood sugar. And I got yelled at. I got yelled at for having a low blood sugar. What did you do? And when I said, I don't know, I pretty well got told, oh, well, you must have done something. So I know he did get me to see a doctor down there, which was great. But the only reason it wasn't to say, well, let's make sure you're doing your diabetes, just to reinforce it. There's new stuff, and sorry, I got itchy. Maybe we should, go and take a look from a doctor. It was not, oh, well, you're doing things wrong. You're cheating. You're drinking soda pop. Blah, 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 blah. And I didn't really get the feeling of support. And I think, again, because he didn't know as well. I gotta admit, at that time, I was very much not really too sure myself. I knew the basics, but I didn't know that after you have a severe low that you can get high blood sugar, a rebound. No, but now we kind of hear that maybe wasn't such a thing back then. But as a parent, you need to be, or you need to have an understanding. But what is offering support? Support may ask, well, how much carbs do you think's in this? Support as parents, a lot of times, or educators, it's all sort of like, oh well, were you off with diabetes again? It's not really a positive, things, and a young diabetic can start to feel, that they're doing something wrong. And then it kind of, depression can set in. For me, I was always very, oh well, okay. And then, to tell you the truth, whenever either my mother or my father would get into, not chastising me, but, talking about anything, it was like, okay, if I just make it through this, then we'll be able to go on. But you've got to be able to have an open dialogue. And I would even have to say that if they do something wrong, in a calm, you could possibly ask, oh, I wonder what happened. Even though you may know exactly what happened. But let them learn from it. Let them evolve. Don't say, oh, what did you do now? Because, excuse me, I should have covered earlier. But just sort of chastising doesn't really work. Now, teachers often would use guiding questions. And that's what, you need to, I said it again, as parents, you need to guide that they're doing the right thing. There's going to reach a point in your young diabetic's life where, oh, they can do it. Yeah, I want to do it. Oh, yes. But there are times when you as individuals, or you maybe as time, that you have to relinquish control. And when you relinquish control, you don't say, well, here's the keys, go for it. You say, well, how are things going? You know, are you finding anything, any weird, not weird, sorry, that's any sort of problem blood sugars, and build that communication. Even if they are totally screwing up, don't come in a chastising voice, because what you're going to do is you're going to break down the walls. Or sorry, you want to break down the walls. You don't want to make it sort of like a teenage diabetic would just go and start shutting down and not telling you. Even today, I can see my dad trying to do that. But you know what? We end up back in the same roles. He will say, so how's your diabetes going? And if I mention a problem, his answer to everything was, oh well, you gotta stop eating Big Macs. And I think we do end up in exactly the same roles. So I usually say, oh, I'm doing well. You know, even in the hospital, when I was in the hospital, and yes, oh, what are you doing in here for so long? Oh. And I know it's kind of like he's, you know, asking for whatever reason. But we need to, I've got to work on breaking that down and realize that he's going to ask the questions and I'm going to have to live with the answers. So, you want to develop that from an early age. Now, you may say, well, I have a great relationship with my kids. And you may have right now. But what I'm saying is you've got to make sure that you keep that up. Offering support when it's needed. But don't chastise, don't criticize. You really need to make sure that you and your child are on the same wavelength. And, you know, they're gonna stumble, they're gonna fall. And I know the first time that they go and see the doctor on their own. And what I mean by that is when you take them to the doctor's office and they go in alone. Ooh. Yeah, what are you going to talk about? And just like, you know, sending them off to college. But it's a lot easier with emails and everything right now that, you know, you can send blood sugars, you can send articles back and forth. It helps them to learn. But the first time, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be just as difficult as you going to do anything. Sometimes they're going to want to be left alone. But other times, they may say or act like they want to be alone, but they really don't. And you need to be able to be there and answer questions. Or just comment, just be in the ear. Well, I've tried this and I think I'm going to try that. Well, sometimes along the road, they're going to have to learn. So just be there, listen. If they're only really chastise if they're actually going to do physical damage to them. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later.